everyone, now that we have completed the discussion regarding the book, let us now come to the discussion of the chapter number 19, which is regarding the professional ethics and the liabilities of the auditor. Right? So ethics, that is the moral values, the principles of a person doing the right thing when nobody is watching you. That could be a single line, in which ethics can be defined as. When somebody is watching you, you do the right thing. But when nobody is watching you, even that time, your conscience, your conscience doesn't allow you to do something which is wrong. That is where we talk about the ethics. To comply with the requirement of law, you could create the fake expense voucher to submit to income tax department and then reduce your tax liability. So you've complied with law in a fake manner, but you would have that guilt within you that ethically you have not done something right. You've done not the tax planning, but you have done the tax evasion over there. Right? So ethics is required for every profession, like whether you're a doctor, an engineer, or an architect, also or any other profession, but more so required for a chartered accountant. Because once a chartered accountant expresses an opinion saying true and fair, that the financial statements of an organization give a true and fair view, there are multiple, huge number of stakeholders who are trusting on these words told by a chartered accountant. Let it be the investors, the board of directors, the management, the shareholders, the government, the trade union, the employees, the insurance company, the arbitrator, the purchase acquisition of the business. N number of organizations are just relying on that कि तुमने कह दिया तो बस it would be right. Right? So that is the trust which has been put upon the chartered accountant, and he cannot do any a breach of trust. He should not break the confidence. We say assurance. Okay, what auditor provides? He provides assurance services. What do you mean by assurance? It says where you're giving a confidence to the intended users. Confidence. Like sometimes, for your exams also you lose your confidence. So then you're given an assurance. No, you study every day, you study in this manner, you will be able to clear, you will be able to cover the syllabus. So when this is told to you, does it not increase your confidence? Right? So yeah, when the CA is providing assurance services, he is giving the confidence to the intended users. Right? He is giving the confidence to the intended users. And when I talk about the chapter of ethics, you think about it this way. Like in the month of June or January, you see this more, in the month of June, you see this monsoon sales that up to 50% off, flat 50% off, buy one get one free. Or in the month of Jan, you see the end of season sale, end of reason sale, stock clearance sale or something like that. Why have you not seen such type of a sale happening in a CA office? That income tax return, buy one get one free, or tax audit, 2 returns and 2 tax audit free, or you get a statutory audit done, you get an internal audit free, or you're going through the bridge and there you see a big hoarding of a chartered accountant over there that join our firm, we give you a package of 15 lakh. But you don't see such advertisement. You don't see Times of India first page, TOI first page, that, tax return at 999. Like first page and advertisement is given, tax return at 999. Have you ever, since the time you've entered into the CA profession, you might be noticing the world of CAs around you, in your articleship, in your office also. Have you ever come across on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, or on YouTube or something, the CA is selling his services? He's telling everybody, come to my office, I'll give you services at a reasonable rate. No. Why? Does he not want to increase his business? He wants to. But then what is keeping him away from doing these things? It is the professional ethics. He says, I do this gadbad. I see, I will take away my membership. They will suspend, there will be a suspension. My COP, I'll have to surrender it. I'll have to suspend my practice for 3 months, 6 months, permanently, depending on the severity of the non-compliance or the misconduct which has been done by the chartered accountant. Right? So that is why a chartered accountant is governed by ethics. Once you create a company, the company is governed by the provisions of the Companies Act 2013. Similarly, a chartered accountant is governed. Once you clear your CA Final, you complete with your articleship, you complete your GMCS or your excellence program, GMCS or so. And then after that, you apply, you complete your SPOM, the self-paced online module. You apply to the institute for the membership. Right, you apply for the membership if you want to practice. You also apply for the certificate of practice, and then your name is entered into the register of the members. And then you get, like how a company gets a registration number, you get a membership number from the ICAI. My membership number of the ICAI is 144805. Right, so your name is entered into the register of member, and now once you and then you start using the degree CACA, Associate Chartered Accountant, after your name, and an Associate Chartered Accountant who is in continuous practice for 5 years or is in practice for less than 5 years, but it is equivalent to that of being in practice for 5 years as considered by the council. Then you become a FCA, you become a fellow chartered accountant. Right, so Associate Fellow Chartered Accountant, this is your degree. And can you use the prefix CA before your name? Yes. Can you also use, if you have a doctorate, can you also use the prefix doctor along with CA in your name? Yes, the prefix is allowed. Right, so the moment the results of ICI comes out at 11:30 p.m. in the night, 11:31, your social media post is ready. That with God's blessings and all the blessings of my elders and all the hard work has finally paid off. And I'm finally getting the prefix CA before my name. And your name, say if it is Neha Sharma, now it becomes CA Neha Sharma. And so then you become a chartered accountant over there. Right? So once you become a chartered accountant, then you're governed by the provisions of the CA Act, right? The Chartered Accountants Act 1949. Right? So you're governed by the provisions of the Chartered Accountants. Many people, they write chartered accountant spelling also wrong. Now what to do, I don't know. Right, so Chartered Accountants Act 1949. Obviously, if it's an act, in the act there are going to be the sections, and after these sections you also have the schedules. Companies Act also you have the Schedule 3 where the format of financial statements is given. So in Chartered Accountants Act also you have the schedules to the Chartered Accountants Act, the two schedules, first and second schedule, wherein mainly they are talking about as a CA in practice, CA in service, what is allowed, what is not allowed, when are you guilty, when are you not guilty of professional misconduct. Okay, so many a times, when I discuss this chapter of ethics, it gives me the feel of, being an umpire on a cricket stadium. The umpire has to say, out, not out, or something. Or sometimes the bowler, goes screaming to the umpire that give a out over there, and the umpire, no reaction on the face. He's like, okay, and then the bowler quietly goes, to put the, to throw the next ball over there. Right? So literally in ethics, once you know the provision, you have to think, like how umpire has to think, out or not out. And out or not out, right? So when you're studying the chapter of ethics, we have to think of guilty or not guilty, guilty or not guilty, out or not out, and that is the verdict which we have to write at the end of the case study. Okay, guilty of misconduct or not guilty? Is this proper behavior or is this the improper behavior of the chartered accountant? Okay, right, so this is what is ethics about. Okay, the institute logo also says, the Esha Sukteshu Jagarti. That means, when the world sleeps, we awake. Right, so we are the people who are there here to awaken the world, and to put the things in, to put things into reality, and to put the real picture in front of the world. Okay, right, so if I talk about the chapter number 19, mainly I can say our discussion of chapter number 19 again is divided under 3 parts. Part 1, where we have the preliminary discussion, like, overview of the code of ethics, and then a few sections of the Chartered Accountants Act. Obviously not all, but a few sections. Then we have a discussion regarding the NOCLAR. Right? Then we have the disciplinary mechanism of the ICAI. Then what is the significance of the certificate of practice? Members are prohibited from using any designation other than that of CA. Companies not to engage in the accountancy. KYC norms for CAs in practice. Likewise, some 12-13 topics are there in the preliminary part. Then in the second part, which is the main heartbeat of the chapter, is where we have the discussion regarding the two schedules to the Chartered Accountants Act, wherein we have the first schedule to the Chartered Accountants Act, and we also have the second schedule to the Chartered Accountants Act. Okay, right? So wherein the 34 clauses of the ethics have been given. Right? One more clause is an upcoming clause, which I've already put in the content of the discussion, but you'll have to check the relevant RTP that whether it has become applicable for exams or no. Right? So yeah, 34 plus 1, which is a hanging one, but 34 are there for sure. And then after that, towards the end of the chapter, we have the discussion regarding the council guidelines. So what is not given in the sections, what is not given under the schedule, for that the council guidelines, right? The council of ICAI, their guidelines have been issued, right? We have the 17 chapters in the guidelines, council guidelines of the ICAI, and apart from that, we also have some recent decisions. Recent, I don't know how recent they are, but they call it all as recent, and the decisions, so keep on accumulating over there, of the Ethical Standard Board, right? So almost the 51 recent decisions of the Ethical Standard Board, which have accumulated over a period of time, right? May 25 material, like 12-13 more have been added, May 25 material. So likewise, जब भी कोई council का कोई discussion होता है, कोई case का verdict happens, so then there is a one more decision added over there, right? So you can take a image of this particular slide of what I have written. Okay, this is what is going to be discussed in the ethics chapter. 1, the preliminary part, second is the schedules part, and third part is the balancing figure, that is the council guidelines. Then there are also some recommended self-regulatory measures over there, and also the recent decisions of the Ethical Standard Board. And what did I tell you? What is the attractive part in the ethics chapter? That we have the 211 questions, right, which are covered in this particular chapter. Right, there are the 211. Can you believe it? Let them ask any question from any corner of the earth. I think we would have already covered it over here. And that's one more reason why ethics is considered to be scoring, because there is a higher possibility of a repetitive question, like similar type of question coming. It's not altogether new. And even though if it's new, it is some content which is already hidden in the theory part of the book. So it's not an out of the world question which comes. So because of the repetitive questions, and so it is considered to be more scoring. There is a particular format of the answer which you could be following. So it becomes more scoring. Like, in number 24, we have this right, AIR 1, who is Rishabh Oswal. All of you might have seen the interview, right, of Rishabh Oswal. It's also there on my YouTube channel, and many other faculties have also taken the interview. But he's like done an out of the world job by getting 93 marks in CA Final Audit. So there would be so many questions where he would have scored out of. Right? So we can keep that benchmark in our mind, right? So even don't think of audit ki ma'am, I want 40, I'm happy. No, think of 60. So even though you have a margin of safety even if you fall down. Right? So if you're thinking of 70, then at least even if 50 comes, no problem. But if you think of 50 and if 30 comes, it could become a problem over there. Right? So next slide, we'll start looking into the outline of the chapter and then begin with the discussion. Right. So let's begin with our preliminary discussion. As I told you, we have the 3 parts of discussion in the ethics chapter. Right? So first we'll take an outline outline of what all we have for the discussion under the preliminary part, and then go through the entire content of the preliminary part and then move on to the schedules and the council guidelines. So have you guys like rolled up your sleeves and say, ma'am, let's do it, right? So on the marks, get set, go. Okay, right. So if we look into this particular discussion of the ethics over there, right, we have like professional ethics, why it's a necessity, as I told you, building trust, public interest, and so, right, it's a public interest, command, respect, your Esha Supteshu Jagarti, right? So that's like an introductory part. Then I could mark this as one, right, the overview of the code of ethics, right, regarding how the code of ethics has been divided, right? Then after the overview, we have a very important discussion point 2, which is regarding the ERII. What does ERII stand for? It stands for the ethical requirements, including the independence, right? So if we make a list of the preliminary part of the discussion in the ethics chapter, which we will call it as the part 1, right, or could be called as the part 1 over there, right? 1, we have the overview of the code of ethics. Then after the overview, we have the fundamental principles, but these fundamental principles, alternatively, they could be also called as the ethical requirements. And you know, in addition to these ethical requirements, chartered accountant, you also need to comply with the requirement of the independence. So that is why we say ethical requirements, including the independence. Okay, right? So ethical requirements. So that's a huge discussion regarding the fundamental principle. Then independence. Whenever we say that chartered accountant, you have to be independent. Rather, you know, the title of our audit report also says independent auditor's report. So whenever you have to ensure that as a chartered accountant or as a professional accountant who is a chartered accountant, you have to be independent. You have to first identify कि क्या CA के इंडिपेंडेंस को कोई खतरा है. उस खतरे को इंग्लिश में कहा जाता है थ्रेट, धोखा, है ना, कि क्या कहीं CA के इंडिपेंडेंस को धक्का लग सकता है. So that is the threat, right? So you have to identify the threat, then you have to evaluate the threat, and then you also need to address the threat by putting the adequate safeguards, right? So identify, evaluate, and address the threats to the independence of the CA, right? Identify, evaluate, and address the threat to the independence of the auditor, right, of the chartered accountant. Okay, right? So that's the entire discussion regarding the threats. Then after that, all the questions regarding the ERII, ethical requirements including independence, those type of questions we see over here. Then another, what you say, trending topic, and where nowadays lot of questions are coming in the exam, is regarding the NOCLAR, right? What does NOCLAR stand for? Non-compliance with the laws and regulation, right? So we could mark this particular topic as the trending topic. Like nowadays lot of questions are coming in the exam regarding the NOCLAR. What is NOCLAR and all that, we'll come to it later. Right now we are just developing an outline. Okay. Right, NOCLAR, then 2 questions regarding NOCLAR. Then we have the discussion regarding the membership of the institute, right? So when do you get your membership of the institute? When will you not get your membership from the institute? What are the types of members of the institute? When will your name be removed from the register of members? Then if it's removed, how your name would be put again? And if you're not a CA, but you're telling everybody, Ori, you don't know I am chartered accountant, that is penalty for falsely claiming to be a member, right? So that is our next point, wherein we talk about the point number 5, which is regarding the membership of the institute, right? The membership of the institute. Okay, then after the membership of the institute, the next question that we see over there is regarding the CA in practice, that is member of the institute, but he is a practicing member of the institute. He is a practicing chartered accountant. So what is the significance of the COP? And so one, you are a member, but if you want to practice, you also need to obtain your COP, right? So here we have a question regarding the significance, discussion regarding the significance of the certificate of practice, right? The significance of the certificate of practice. And again, the questions related to that. Significance of COP, and then another question, when are you deemed to be in practice, right? It's not come in the formatting, it is section 2.2. It's written over here, section 2.2. Right, so that is our next topic for discussion over here, which is regarding the members who are deemed to be in practice. के मान के चलो के अगर CA is doing this work, he is deemed to be in practice. So again, one of the favorite area of ICAI to ask questions. So those questions, that particular topic, we mark it as the 5-star. And the members who are deemed to be in practice. Right, so that's the entire discussion regarding the section 2.2 and the questions. Then after that, a small discussion regarding companies not to engage in accountancy. You might have seen that, CA, either he practices as a sole proprietor, or he practices as a partnership firm, or he practices as an LLP. But you never see that a CA has made a company, except for nowadays, the management consultancy company is allowed. But, as such, a CA cannot do his CA practice in corporate form. CA practice, you have to do it as a sole proprietor firm or LLP. Right? So that is companies not to engage in the accountancy. And companies not to engage in the accountancy. Right. Then coming to the next point, which is the members prohibited from using any designation other than that of CA. That you are telling, I am CA, but I am also MJ, DJ, RJ, VJ. It's a keep quiet. You cannot be all of this. You cannot be using these designation other than that of CA. Right. So it says prohibited. Prohibited from using any other designation other than that of CA. There are certain approved designations. We'll study more about it later. Right? So prohibited from using any other designation. Okay. Right. Then can a CA in practice have more than one office? Yes. Right. Then what are the rules and regulations, the requirement regarding the branch offices of the CA? Right. So here we talk about the section 27 of the Chartered Accountants Act, which is regarding the maintenance of the branch offices, right? Which is regarding the maintenance of the branch offices. Again, we can mark it as a 5-star topic because very regularly we see questions coming in the exam from the branch office. Right? So that is regarding the branch office. Then after the branch office, you have the KYC norms for CAs in practice. Like, if you go to a bank to open a bank account, they first complete with your KYC. Right? So that is know your customer. But if any prospective client approaches a CA for some services, CA has to first complete with the KYC, which is know your client instead of know your customer. Right? So that is KYC norms for the CA in practice, right? The KYC norms for the CAs in practice. Then after the KYC norms for CAs in practice, we have the disciplinary mechanism or the procedure of ICAI. कि अभी CA ने Chartered Accountants Act के sections नहीं comply किए. CA is guilty, guilty of misconduct. He has not had the proper behavior, no proper professional behavior. So what action? Right? Where can you file a complaint against the chartered accountant? So that is given under the disciplinary mechanism, the disciplinary procedure of the ICAI, right? So you have the disciplinary mechanism or the disciplinary procedure of the ICAI, right? And then we come to the discussion regarding the misconduct, which is given under the schedules to the Act, right? So this part will come later, but right now our focus is going to be on this beginning part of the discussion, right? So I hope all of you have got an outline of in the preliminary part of our discussion in ethics. This is what we need to cover. right? This is what we need to cover, right? Few topics which are, because it's a marathon batch, obviously few topics I'll just give you an outline, and few other topics we'll get into the more detailed discussion and also tell you, okay, regarding what type of questions could be asked on a particular topic. Okay, because you are doing attending, the classes through a recorded batch, you always have the liberty, of deciding how much of the content you are going to watch in one go. And okay, kitna content, whether you want to watch for 2 hours at a stretch, or whether you want to watch for 4 hours at a stretch, or whether you have listened to a particular topic and then after that you want to pause the video, you want to see the questions, you want to make your notes, you want to revise it a few times and then go ahead. So you have that liberty of, the purpose is not a tak 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 karke ya speed badha ke you finishing the lectures. No, the purpose, your end result is clearing CA Final Audit. So whatever is required, keep that end goal in mind. Don't keep your goal as completing the lecture, though that could be a contributing factor. But completing the lectures effectively. Okay, yeah, when I did the lectures, along with that my notes are also prepared. I've seen the type of questions also which come in the exam. I've revised also, every I see 4 hours of the lecture, I revise what is discussed in those 4 hours. Then I next go for the next 4 hours. So that is your smartness. Right? That is your smartness regarding how more effectively you take, effectively you utilize the lecture. Had it been a face-to-face class, you have no option. If the class is for 8 hours or 6 hours, and then whatever is covered, you have to keep pace with what is happening in the class. But here, it being a recorded class, you have the luxury, of getting it customized or tailor-made to get the most out of it, to suit your requirements. Accordingly, it can be customized. Right? I hope your mind is processing or, started creating certain thoughts regarding how you would go about this particular classes. Okay, right, so let's begin with our discussion of the chapter on the ethics. So I again need to go back through all the pages where I have come ahead. Okay. Right, so starting with the overview of the code of ethics, right? So if I come to the ICAI website, ICAI, if I come to the ICAI website over there, and if I specifically put it as the ESB ICAI, right, the Ethical Standard Board of the ICAI, right, you'll see under the Ethical Standard Board of the ICAI, right, that they have this particular overview, the entire text given over there. Disciplinary Directorate, or let me put it as disciplinary ICAI. Okay, right, so Disciplinary Directorate ICAI, right, so you see it over here that they've given the code of ethics, right, so that is where we are talking about the overview of the code of ethics, wherein you have the volume 1, 2 and 3, right. Volume 3 is mainly all the frequently the case law referencer, right, so all the question and answer for all the case studies which have happened, like how in DT, IDT you have the case studies, so you never know, a particular case situation could be picked up and it becomes a case study in your exams, right? So yeah, and then you have the volume 1 and the volume 2, right? So we don't have the discussion on the entire volume covered over here, but yeah, this is the base material, and this particular content over here is the base material, right? So they've given the overview, the preface to all the editions of the code of ethics so far, and then they talk about, what we are going to study in our book right now. Are you able to corroborate? Like part 1, part 2, part 3, and then part 4A and 4B. Right, so you see that same thing given over here, 1, 2, 3, 4A and the 4B. Right, so these are the number of pages in which this content has been included. Right, so here they've just given an outline and a few sections of the Chartered Accountants Act in our book, and the discussion, the focus is on the schedules. But yeah, if you want to know the base material, this is the base material over there. Right, the Code of Ethics. Then you also have the CA Act, right, the Chartered Accountants Act 1949, right, so like, for company law, how you refer to the BEAR Act, here also you could refer to the BEAR Act, right, then you have the CA rules, Right, then after that, the different rules being given over there, right? The rules, different investigation rules, and so. And then we also have the CA regulations, right, which are mainly for the articles and so. And the CA regulations, you have regulation 190, 191, 192, and so. Right, so wherein there are the CA regulations also. Right, then this is the disciplinary mechanism of the ICAI, that any person, your client, another CA, they want, or one CA wants to file a complaint against another CA, or article wants to file a complaint against principal. You say, ma'am, can we do that? Yeah, you can. Okay, but at your own risk. Okay. Right, so ma'am, where? Kiska darwaza khatkatao? Kahan jaake complain karu? So the complaint can be filed with the disciplinary mechanism of the ICAI. Right, so obviously you can file a complaint. You have the E-form over there. And then after that, you give the name of the complainant and then the latest addressed and last available. And then, the place, and then you also have to pay the fees. You say, oh ma'am, even for this, yeah, because ICI has a redressal mechanism, no, so you have to pay the fees of 2950 including the 18% GST, and then your case would be put before the forum of the ICAI, and then they will decide. So this is the orders, and which have been passed by the Board of Disciplinary Committee, right? So if you see the orders which have been passed in this year, right, you see the name of the case, right? So then who has filed the complaint and against which chartered accountant, and then if you open that particular case over there, you come to know that whether the chartered accountant, so CA so and so against person so and so against the CA, who were the members present, so hearing, passing of order, and then finally what was the verdict of the case, that whether the chartered accountant is guilty, not guilty, whether he's suspended from practice, whether he is not suspended from practice. So it's like, your income tax and indirect taxes, what you study, right? So thus, in conclusion, in the considered opinion of the Board of the Discipline of the ICAI, the respondent is guilty, is guilty of other misconduct falling within the meaning of item 2, that's we also call it as clause 2 of part 4 of the first schedule to the Chartered Accountants Act 1949, read with section 22 of the said act. So you can just, interestingly read over here, which all chartered accountants against whom the complaints have been filed and what all orders have been passed. Oh my God. You see, ma'am, so many chartered accountants, so much problem. Yeah. See it over there. So interesting area for your research. You got the case law referencer, and then you see these orders. They are posted, they are published on the website of ICAI, right? So that is why you have to be very careful with your reputation. That there should be no, Spotify, no spots coming on it, because it could be, it will hamper your, the goodwill which you have built in the profession over a period of time. Okay, right. So anyways, that is just giving you an outline. So here it is talking about the overview of the Code of Ethics. So in the overview, very simple, they talk about part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, which is part 4A and part 4B. Part 1 is the conceptual framework. It is talking about the fundamental principles, which I also told you is the ethical requirements. Right? Then part 2 of the Code of Ethics is applicable for CA in service. That is, who are employees in an organization, right? So which are working in an executive or non-executive capacity. Would be working in the commerce, industry, service, public sector, education. So that is applicable for CA who is working as an employee, or CA who is in service. Right? Part 3 is applicable for CAs who are in practicing. That is the practicing chartered accountant. And then part 4 is talking about the independent standards. That chartered accountant, you have to maintain the independence. And when you're doing audit review engagement, more independence required. And then independence independence for other than audit review engagement. So that is how the 4A and the 4B has been divided. 4 is all regarding independence, but 4A is regarding independence for the audit review assurance engagement, and 4B is regarding the independence for other than audit review engagement. Right, so that is the bifurcation. Okay, right, so yeah, oh my god, ma'am, have we completed? Yes, we've completed with the first part, which is regarding the overview of the code of ethics. Okay, now coming to one of the ATF. What is ATF? That is all-time favorite. So what all words I have used so far? If anybody is able to remember, yeah, sit straight, don't look here and there. Right, so one, I used a word called as trending. And okay, nowadays there is a lot of trend, like I told you, no clar. Nowadays, lot of questions coming in the exam. Then I told you 5-star. Okay, instead of trying 5 stars, we just say that this is a 5-star topic. That means simple language, it's an important topic. Right, then we mark some questions as ATF, all-time favorite. That is all-time favorite of the ICAI. That is near and dear to ICAI. And obviously, what is near and dear to ICAI has to be near and dear to us also. Right, so regularly the questions have been seen on this particular topic. Right, so one, we call it as trending. Second, we call it as 5-star. Third, we call it as the ATF. Fourth, we call it as the waiting list question. What is a waiting list question? A question, WLQ. What does WLQ stand for? Waiting list question. What do you mean by a waiting list question? A question which is there in the RTP or it is there in the MTP, but it is not yet asked in the exam. You know, so it's already loaded in the bullet, but yet to be shooted. And those type of question, which is there in MTP, RTP, or in the ISM Institute study material. But abhi tak, like, you know, these questions are ready, but they have not yet been asked in the exams, right? So those we call it as the WLQ. So you see any question, oh, it's only in RTP or MTP, you know, oh, this is a potential question for the exam, right? Then there are certain amendments, like, you know, right now this bank audit, the SLR, audit of compliance with the statutory liquidity ratio, you know, what is included in the computation of DTL, what is excluded in the computation of DTL. You know, there are some changes which have taken place. So it was already there, but wahan pe thoda amendment aaya hai to keep it as simple as it is. So for those amendments or something new which has come in the syllabus, we mark it as R raised to 10 or we simply call it as new, and NEW or NEU, whichever style. You know, we call it as new. You know, so what is R raised to 10? It means because this is a new topic, you need to read, revise it 10 times. You understand 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 times, literally. No, you know, doing what you say, adjustment over there. You study 3 times and you're saying, ma'am, I have done it 10 times. No. And no, if 10 times means इज्जत से, मतलब एकदम genuinely कि एक बार पढ़ के हो गया एक डंडी, 2 बार पढ़ के हो गया second, third, fourth, fifth, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like that. You have to keep a stock. Literally, have I finished studying it 10 times? Okay, right. So these are, if you know, sometimes I call some particular question also as the, what you say, SIQ, you know, like super important question. You know, so there are certain questions which could be marked as the SIQ. What is SIQ? Super important questions. Okay, so right now I'm explaining all this to you, but as I get into the flow of the class, you have to know. And okay, oh, she's marked as trending means nowadays lot of questions coming. 5-star means it's important. ATF, IC has been asking questions on this. Waiting list, it's there in MTP, RTP, not yet asked in exam. It's R raised to 10. I need to read, revise 10 times. It's new, or it's a super important question. At the end, my dear students, the verdict is very simple. When you prepare for CA Final Audit, listen to me, Ray. Don't look here and there. As a verdict, when you study for CA Final Audit, basically it is only only two types of questions that you need to study. One, questions which are already asked by ICAI, and second, questions which are yet to be asked by ICAI. I wish I could see that smile on your face right now. Only two types, already and yet. You see a question, you see a topic, and you say, oh, is this already asked by ICAI? You say, yeah, it is asked. So you better study, it can come again. And second, oh, this question not asked by ICAI, then you better study, because it might come in your exams. It's so simple. You have to study everything. Because we can't lose 6 months of our life. Simple reason. You'll say, why you're studying so much? Why you're studying 859 questions in Aarti ma'am book? You say, I don't want to study it again. That's my only motivation. Okay, right. So that is regarding the markings over there. Right. So right now we've completed with the overview and now the fundamental principles. So itna Ramayan. Why I told you? Because I wanted to tell you about this ATF. So when I mark it as ATF, does it mean aviation turbine fuel? No. It means all-time favorite. Whose favorite? Aarti ma'am's favorite? No, it is ICAI favorite. What is ICAI favorite? Is apna favorite. Okay, right. So now let's come to the discussion regarding the ERII. What is ERII? Ethical requirements, including independence. Keep writing with me. Keep making some notes. Keep doing some marking with me. Should not happen that you're only listening. I'm telling you, after some point of time, kuch yaad nahi hoga. Writing, making notes, doing some highlighting is very essential when you are studying audit for better retention of the subject. Okay. These ethical requirements could also be called as the fundamental principles to be followed by a professional accountant. Right, so this entire topic is an ATF, all-time favorite. What are the fundamental principles? What are the ethical requirements for a chartered accountant? So we have the integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, what we call it as PCDC, then the confidentiality and the professional behavior. Right, so these are the fundamental principles. What are the fundamental principles? Integrity, right? So straightforward, honest, fair dealing, truthfulness, not to associate with financial statements which are materially misleading, not to associate with financial statements where certain information is omitted or it is obscuring, or not to do the work and associate with financial statements where information is provided negligently. नहीं ऐसे लोगों से ऐसे financial statements से 2 हाथ दूर. So that is integrity. Second, objectivity. That means no subjectivity, no bias, no conflict of interest, not to compromise your opinion, not to come under the undue influence of others. These are all the technical terms, what I'm saying right now. And okay, straight for integrity, what did I say? Straightforward, honest, fair dealing, truthfulness. For objectivity, what did I say? No undue influence, not to compromise his judgment based on others' requirement or based on others' interest. Right, next you have the PCDC. What is PCDC? Professional competence and the due care. Right, so it says 1, you have to be technically very sharp and updated with the developments in the profession. You have to attain and maintain your knowledge. Right? So that is competence, technical capability. And second, you should do your work with due care. That means you should do your work with skill, care and caution. You should not be negligent in the performance of your duty. You should be cautious and careful in discharging your duties. Right? So that is PCDC. Then next ethical requirement is of the confidentiality, not to disclose the secrets of the client, the information which has been provided to the CA to facilitate the conduct of the audit unless required by law or taken prior permission of the client, right? So that is confidentiality, not to disclose the secrets. And then professional behavior, right? So what is the last ethical requirement over here? Professional behavior, which says that CA, you need to avoid, you need to refrain, be away from any such behavior which might bring the discredit to the profession, where people say, oh my god, this is how CA behaves, how terrible, how horrible. No. So, you're going to the client place and you're playing loud music. So you say, ma'am, what is the problem? It says it brings disrepute to the profession. We look at chartered accountant. He's coming in, vacation clothes to the office. He's wearing these, Goa party type clothes to office. The principal is telling article to do all his, household work. You say, ma'am, no, ma'am, I can understand what you have gone through. Right. So, yeah, it says this is not the professional behavior of a chartered accountant. And he is making exaggerated claims. Bada chada ke, badhaiya kar raha hai. It says, bhai, ye sab nahi karna hai. Sone jaisa, like a chartered accountant should be a hira. It should be like a diamond, like gold. Hey, all these small little things, you say, I am much beyond all of this. This all doesn't work. Chartered accountant means glittering, shining, glamorous. Glamorous could be, I think, more page 3. But yeah, glittering, shining in terms of his respect and his dignity of the profession. And that is what is expected of a chartered accountant. And सोने की चमक, हीरे की चमक होनी चाहिए. Okay, you can't write this in exam, but yeah. Right, so fundamental principle, integrity, objectivity, PCDC, that is professional competence. Say it with me, yaar. Professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and the professional behavior. Okay. One, I've already told you regarding how we do the markings of the question. Now let me throw one more very, very, very important insight in front of all of you regarding what are the types of questions which could be asked by ICAI for a particular topic. And questions asked by ICAI for a particular topic. So, like right now we are studying the topic regarding the fundamental principle. Let us take that as an example. Right, listen to me very carefully. Right, so one, on this topic, ICAI could ask us a wholesale question. Briefly discuss what are the fundamental principles to be followed by a professional accountant. So you need to know the headings and then each heading ke aage 2-3 lines, that should be the format. Okay, that is wholesale. Second, ICAI could ask you a retail question. Retail question, like what you could say, that professional competence and due care is one of the ethical requirement for a chartered accountant. Please elaborate. So now it's not each heading 2-3 lines. Now it is one heading, 8-10 lines. One big discussion over there. So obviously, coincidentally, when the question is asked in retail, you have to know the points in detail. Right, so detail level over there. And third, what new trend of ICAI is being seen is where they are asking the micro questions over there. Like they say, one of the ethical requirement of the chartered accountant is confidentiality. And in case, you say not to disclose the secrets of the client unless required by law or taken permission of the client. So what are the exceptions where the CA can disclose the confidential information? Or what points are to be taken care of when the CA is disclosing the information related to the client? Believe me, these are the type of specific questions which are being asked by ICAI nowadays. And I can just show you a glimpse of that. Like this is integrity, objectivity, PCDC, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and then you have the professional behavior. Right, now if I come to the question bank, right, so in the question bank you see this question number 4 over there, just as an example, May 24, 5 marks. In terms of subsection 114 of the revised code of ethics, a professional accountant shall comply with the principle of confidentiality. So that means it's a retail question which requires an accountant to respect the confidentiality of information acquired as a result of professional and employment relationships. So CA in practice, CA in service. Confidentiality serves the public interest because it facilitates the free flow of information from the accountant's client or employing organization to the accountant in knowledge that the information will not be disclosed to a third party. So ये सारा story writing है. In this context, enumerate the circumstances where professional accountants are or might be required to disclose the confidential information or when such disclosure might be appropriate. So basically they are asking a question regarding the exception, and in deciding whether to disclose the confidential information, what are the points that should be kept in mind by the professional accountant? So are you seeing, it's not even a generic question only regarding the confidentiality. In confidentiality also they are digging further. And have they ever, like, students who prepared for the May 24 exam, had this question ever been asked before? No. If you have an edition of the book before May 24, would you see this question over there? No. But would you see this content in the chapter? Yes. This content is there in the chapter. So, if it comes in the exam, our attitude of looking towards the question undergoes a change. Oh, this is asked. But there could be many such potential hidden questions in the content of the chapter where you write the exam and you have to answer those for the first time, and I add them later on in the question bank. So, likewise, we can create like 10,000 questions. But rather than those 10,000 questions, let us have the right programming of our head to approach a particular topic, to approach a particular question. You follow what I say? Okay, what should be your approach when you're studying a particular topic? Don't start dancing, ethical requirement, I, O, P, C, D, C, C, P, B, and then I know. You know nothing. You know nothing. That's just the outermost layer. There's a long way ahead. You have to know the retail question. You have to know the micro question. You have to remember the points in detail. You cannot go blank. You have to have the writing practice. You need to have the presentation skills. You need to have the time management. You understand the value of my words? What did I say? Content, wholesale, retail, micro, remembering, not going blank, writing practice, presentation skills, time management. In the first hour of the lecture itself, we are understanding that this is the approach which we need to follow to study audit. उड़ते marks आएंगे. You go for flying, flyover to flyover approach. Okay? Every chapter overview, every chapter, even your marks will be overview, 2, 3 marks, and some total of 30, 40, or some total of, 141 out of 300 or so in one group. Right? Should not and will not happen. I know many of my students who are watching me right now are also potential AIRs. So for you, it's not a thought about 70, 80. It's a thought about 90 plus for audit. It's a question of excellence in audit. Okay, right. So obviously, as I go further into the discussion, I am not going to tell you every time what is wholesale, retail, micro, and so. Ab maine samjha diya hai. At CA Final, I think this should be enough for your understanding. And then, apart from the wholesale, retail, and the micro, there could be one fourth dimension which I could add to the topic, which is regarding the MCQ. Okay, this particular topic, how they could make a question. Like, a very simple question. If it comes, it could be like a bonus. Okay, which of the following is not? ये institute को बड़ा मजा आता है to ask not question. Okay, which of the following is not a fundamental principle to be followed by a professional accountant? Which of the following is not a fundamental principle to be followed by a professional accountant? A, B, C, D. What is A? Professional behavior. What is B? Professional competence and due care. Right? What is C? Integrity. And what is D? Professional skepticism. Professional skepticism. You might have studied about this in SA 200, no? An attitude that includes a questioning mind, being alert to conditions which may indicate a possible misstatement due to error or fraud, and a critical assessment of the audit evidence. So which of the following is not a fundamental principle? Is professional behavior a fundamental principle? Yes. PCDC? Yes. Integrity? Yes. Professional skepticism is not a fundamental principle. It is one of the attitude which has to be kept by the chartered accountant. You follow that, right? So professional skepticism. So how out of that topic only they could ask a question regarding the MCQ, or they could make a question, that a chartered accountant needs to be straightforward and honest in the discharge, straightforward and honest in the discharge of his professional duty. Which fundamental principle of the CA is being addressed in the given circumstance? Right? So is it talking about the integrity? Is it talking about the objectivity? Is it talking about the independence? Or is it talking about the confidentiality of the CA? So one, two, you know that independence is no fundamental principle. So this goes out. Then you know this is nothing regarding confidentiality. So two are out, 50-50, two remaining, A and B. अब इसमें तुम्हें सोचना पड़ेगा. Integrity, objectivity. Now, if you remembered the keywords, integrity, straightforward, honest, sincere, and a fair dealing, truthfulness, and objectivity, unbiased, not to compromise, then immediately you will be able to take integrity. Otherwise, you will end up doing inky, pinky, ponky, inky, pinky, A, B, fighting between, tug of war between the two. Okay, let's see how an MCQ could be created. There's so many, like there could be an MCQ, which of the following point is covered, confidentiality addresses which of the following circumstance. Let's you understand that a particular topic, whichever we pick up, you are going to approach it in 4 fashions. 1, wholesale. 2nd, retail. 3rd, microscopic question. And 4th would be the MCQ questions. Right? And 4th would be the MCQ questions over there. Okay, like if I again one more time come to the question bank of the ERII, right? You see one question over there which is fundamental principle. So this, can I call it as a wholesale question? Yes. Number 22, number 16 asked in exam. Right. Then after that you see PCDC, 4 marks, number 2024. So can I call it as a retail question? Yes. Then confidentiality, have they asked a specific question on the point number 2 and 3? Yes, so that I can call it as a micro question. And obviously MCQs, I get to see it in the other book. And I get to see it in the module 3. Right, so if I say probably try to... Oh, so it's not opened. I'll just open those pages. Or it could be there in SQC 1, SA 220 also, right? So wherein you get to see this specific questions, like regarding the independence, right? So question number 6 over here is regarding the types of threats to the independence of the auditor, right? So these are now the specific questions over there. Right, so these are the specific questions over there. Okay. Right, so let's just have a look at the discussion regarding the fundamental principles, right? So where we talk about the integrity, right? So I said as a chartered accountant, as a professional accountant, he is required to comply with the principle of integrity, which requires him to be straightforward, honest, implies fair dealing and also the truthfulness, right? So that's what I told you. If you want to study from the book, content is there. You want to revise from the book, the read words you read and you are able to revise. And you want to read, refer to the book as a scanner. So you look into the question bank at the end of each topic and you come to know regarding what type of questions have been asked by the ICAI. Okay, right. So there it says कि chartered accountant, when we are talking about your integrity, please do not associate with any financial statements or any information which contains, materially false or the misleading statement, or where information has been provided to the CA negligently, or omits or obscures. Obscures means it's not giving the clear picture कि कितना litigations है, कितना contingent liabilities है. Right? So it talks about the MNO, materially false, misleading statement, negligently provided information, or omits or obscures the required information, right? So that's integrity. Objectivity, not to compromise professional or business judgment because of the bias, conflict of interest, undue influence of others, right? So no coming under the undue influence or pressure or under the words or under the behkawa of others. Okay, right. Then you have the PCDC, that is your professional competence and due care. So one, attend, and then after you attend, you have to maintain it also. You have to be updated with the developments in the profession. And once you are technically sharp, then work-wise also you have to act diligently in accordance with the technical professional standards. And so how to do your work as per the standards, how to apply the technical knowledge, it says that requires the exercise of the sound judgment. CA has to be having a continuous awareness regarding the developments in the profession, right? So develop and maintain his capability. That is why for practicing chartered accountants you have the CPE, right? The continuing professional education program of the ICAI. And whatever work is done by the CA, it has to be done carefully, it has to be done thoroughly and on a timely basis. It should not happen that client board meeting could not be conducted because CA had not completed the audit, or CA did not complete his work on time. That is why the company had to pay a penalty. No, CA also. So you say, no, I was doing it carefully, that is why more time lag gaya. No, carefully, thoroughly and on a timely basis. And you cannot say that I have all the knowledge, I have all the skill set, but people working under me are all dumb. No, people working under you, it says, you have to ensure that the people working under the accountant, even they are given the proper training and the supervision is done of their work. Right, so appropriate training and supervision. Right, so that is PCDC. Then talking about confidentiality. Right, so client or the employer is providing the CA with the information to facilitate the free flow of information, to facilitate the conduct of the work. But obviously this is being given for a particular purpose and not for you to take any personal advantage or to do any insider trading. And this confidentiality has to be maintained for your past clients even after the end of the engagement. Obviously it has to be maintained for your present clients whom you are serving right now, and also for your prospective clients where you are under some discussions with the client. Even for your prospective client you have to maintain the confidentiality. By mistake I happened to say, I did not want to say, I met my friends in the evening for coffee, or baton mein nikal gaya. It says even an inadvertent disclosure in a social environment is not allowed. Right, then it says you have to maintain the confidentiality even after the relationship has ended. That is also for your past client. You also have to maintain the confidentiality for your prospective client. Then it says again you should not use client information for your personal advantage, like I told you, the insider trading. Right, then you also need to ensure that the people working under you, even they are maintaining the confidentiality. Like people working under you should also have PCDC. So people working under you should also maintain the confidentiality. And it says you have to maintain the confidentiality within the firm or the employing organization also. So not that, if PwC is doing the audit of, say, an organization, not that everybody in PwC knows about that organization. Like, say there are 4,000 people working over there, but there are 40 people in the engagement team. Only those 40 people should know. In that 40 also, say 4 people are dealing in that area. Only those people should know about that area. Right, so you have to maintain confidentiality within the firm or within the employer organization also. Right, so need to know basis, wherever required, permitted by law, required by law, only there you disclose, otherwise keep quiet. Right, so that is confidentiality. So now, what is the learning over here for your approach? Okay, point number 2 and 3 exam mein micro question mein aake gaya hai. So one, that can be asked again, or they can ask some other fundamental principle, or they can ask you this first set of points. Right, or they can ask you, because after this is asked, so earthquake has taken place in this area, so there is a possibility that the tremors of the earthquake might be coming upwards or downwards. Okay, right, so yeah, again we could mark this, okay, shall comply with the requirement of confidentiality, and how does he comply with this requirement? Right, then not to disclose the secrets of the client, that is the thumb rule. But when could you might disclose the confidential information? It says one, where it is required by law. And okay, law says that you have to provide the information, like the CA has to give the information to NAFRA, it is required by law, so that is supreme. Second, it is permitted by law. Okay, law says it is okay and authorized by client. So it is not required, but law could allow you only after you've got the authorization from the client. Or there is a professional duty or a right to disclose. So one, it says permitted by law, and last it says professional duty or right to disclose. Right? So to whom do you have a professional duty or right to disclose? So say some peer review, quality review of ICAI is going on, or some inquiry investigation by some professional regulatory body, or to protect the professional interests of a professional accountant in legal proceeding, or to comply with the technical professional standards. Right, so in these situations, again, it says you can disclose, you might disclose the information. One, it is required by peer review. Second, it is required by the professional regulatory body, or it is required in the professional interest in the legal proceeding, or it is required as per the professional standards. Right, so first PR stands for peer review, second PR stands for professional regulatory body, third PI, professional interest, and last one PS, which is professional standards. And when you are disclosing this information, what points are you going to take care of? Whether the interests of any parties are going to be harmed, then whatever information is being given, is it known and substantiated? What is the type of communication and to whom it is addressed, and whether the parties to whom it is being communicated, are they the appropriate recipients? Like, in general philosophy in life, they say, you have something in your mind about somebody else, and then you are in a dilemma whether I should say it or no. So there, it says you need to apply 3 rules. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? So you say, nahi, maine to urte urte suna hai, mujhe pakka nahi pata hai. So then it gets eliminated over there. So you say, yeah, it's true, it's like confirmed. And then is it kind? Will it make that other person feel happy about it, or will it hurt them? You say it might hurt them. So then you say, forget, don't talk about it. Okay. Then third situation, you say it is true. I know it. It is kind also. Then third, you think, is it necessary? You say, no, I don't think I need to say it. Then again, don't say it. So you have to put these 3 filters before you decide to open your mouth. Okay, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? This is general philosophy. But here, what does it say? When you have to disclose this information, you have to think whether the interest of any party could be harmed. Whatever you're telling, is it known, substantiated? What is the type of communication and to whom it is to be addressed? And whether the parties to whom it is to be addressed, are they the appropriate parties? Are they the appropriate recipients? Right? Are they the appropriate recipients? Okay. And then the last fundamental principle over there is the professional behavior, which says avoid. and refrain, be away from any such behavior which might bring the discredit to the profession. Right? So always act in a manner which will bring the good reputation to the profession. And again, for that you need to be honest and truthful, and no bada chada ke, should not make exaggerated claim, no making disparaging references or unsubstantiated comparison. Like, the size of our firm, the work which we do is equivalent to the work done by an elephant. So some unsubstantiated comparison, or there should not be any direct or indirect advertisement or solicitation. Right? So avoid any such behavior which might bring the discredit or the disrepute to the profession. Right? So that is our discussion regarding the fundamental principles or the ethical requirement. Now we come to the next part of the discussion over there, which is regarding the independence. Right? So as a chartered accountant, you have to maintain your independence. And what do you mean by independence? It says independence implies that the judgment of a person, कि जो भी आपका अंदाजा है, the judgment of a person is not a subordinate to the wishes or directions of another person who might have engaged him or for his own self-interest. Right? So that is independence. Your judgment, your decision making is not subordinate. It says the code of ethics requires independence not only of mind but also the independence of the appearance. That is, not only be but also appear to be independent. To whom do you appear to be independent? It says to a reasonable and informed third party. RITP. What is RITP? Reasonable informed third party. Like that you say, ma'am, I know I am independent, but not only you, even though if I ask a third party, a reasonable informed third party who may not be a chartered accountant, even they would say, yeah, this CA absolutely independent. So independence, you not only in your mind, but also the independence of the appearance. And now, how do you come to know that whether the CA is independent or not? So we have a very important, equation over there, that the moment you listen to the word independence, the next term coming to your mind has to be threats. And now whether there are any threats to the independence of the chartered accountant. Right. So now for these threats, first step, what CA has to do? Identify whether there is any threat. Then after you identify, you evaluate that whether if there is no threat, matter is over. But if there is a threat, now evaluate whether it is at an acceptable level. Whether, that it won't affect your independence. You say, no, it is not at an acceptable level. Then you have to address it by trying to reduce it to an acceptably low level. And by trying to reduce it or eliminating the threat. Right? So either how you address the threat, either by eliminating the threat or by reducing it. And how do you reduce the threat? For reducing the threat, you need to apply the safeguards. For reducing the threat, you need to apply the safeguards. Right? So very important. This you need to learn it by heart. Right? You can also fill your heart, with this independence. And you have to learn this by heart. Right? Independence. Right? Threat. First, identify whether there is any threat. If threat is identified, evaluate whether the threat is at an acceptable level. If not, you address it to reduce it, to eliminate it. How do you reduce it? By putting the applicable safeguards. Okay, so rather, just as a chit note over there, if you look at the word threats, if you write the correct spelling over there itself, one, it is independence related threats that we are talking about. So first word is I. Then after the I, we talk about the E. What is the E? Evaluate. Then after the E, we talk about the A. What is the A? Address. And then you have the applicable safeguards, right? So that is the safeguards, right? So hidden in the word of the threat, independence threat, you get your words I, E, A, S. I, independence, identify, evaluate, address, safeguard. Do you follow this, everyone? Okay, right. So threat to the independence of the CA. So now here we are talking about the 5 types of threats. Five types of threats to the independence of a chartered accountant. And what are these 5 टाइप्स ऑफ थ्रेट्स कि कौन से प्रकार का खतरा धोखा है ना हो सकता है सीए के इंडिपेंडेंस को. इट टॉक्स अबाउट द FSSAI. Right, so what is FSSAI? Familiarity threat, self-interest threat, self-review threat, advocacy threat, and the intimidation threat. Right, so you have F, familiarity threat, S, self-interest threat, second S, self-review threat, A, advocacy threat, and then intimidation threat. Okay, right, so now one for each of this type of threat, familiarity, self-interest, self-review, advocacy, and the intimidation threat. Right, so like we have the familiarity, then we have the self-interest, self-review, advocacy, and the intimidation threat. Right? For each of this type of threat, one, we have to understand the meaning. Okay, familiarity, where you're too sympathetic. Oh, my client. Oh, my client. Too sympathetic. Client is saying, see, please. So you say, okay, I'll give unmodified opinion. No tension. Too sympathetic to client interest. So that is the familiarity, when you have a long association with the client. Self-interest, wherein you have some financial interest, you are having a business relationship with the client, you have undue dependence on the total fees of the client, you are doing some business with the client, so then you can't be independent. That is self-interest threat. Either you have some financial or some employment interest. Right, then self-review threat, wherein self-review, the simple, जहाँ अपने audit का maker-checker concept is getting violated. Okay, I am only writing the books of account. I am only auditing those books of account. I am only writing my paper. I am only checking my paper. Super. And a maker checker जहाँ violate होता है. This should remind you of section 144 of the Companies Act. Auditor not to render certain services. Accounting and bookkeeping, internal audit, design and implementation of financial information system, outsourced financial services, investment advisory services, investment banking services, actuarial services, management services, any other services as may be prescribed. Why? Because that is the self-review threat. And our maker-checker is getting violated. Next one, advocacy. कि आप किसी का क्या बोलते हैं वकीली कर रहे हो, है ना, advocacy. कि wherein you are, what you say, your opinion is, you can't act objectively. You're advocating, you're promoting the client's opinion. You're taking client's side. You're not being, objective. Like you've done something wrong, but your mother is still taking your side and saying, no, you've not done anything wrong. So she's advocating on your behalf. Right? So that's advocacy threat. This company is a big fraud, but still you're telling everybody, no, you should invest in the shares of this company, or promoting the shares of that company. So that is advocacy threat. Wherein you're deterred, you're not acting objectively. Right? You're in favor of the client, even though if they're doing something wrong, or your employer. That is advocacy. And last one, intimidation. Intimidation means where you are, intimidation itself means threat. So it's like a threatening threat. Right? So wherein, client is keeping you at gunpoint. CA, you issue qualified opinion, we change the auditor. CA, we are going to file a litigation against you. CA, we are going to change our audit next year. CA, we are going to reduce your audit fees. Nowadays, you've started doing a lot of checking. So that is the way they are stopping you from acting objectively. And they say, dhamki deke, like that type of an attitude of the client or the employer, wherein you're not able to act objectively. Why? Because they are threatening you with litigation. They're threatening you that we will reduce the fee. They're threatening you that we will replace the auditor. We'll appoint some another firm. So that's an intimidation threat. So when you're in favor of the client and promoting their viewpoint, that is advocacy. Okay, you are, joint hands with them, and they are threatening your existence or threatening your, identity, then that is intimidation threat. Right, so one understanding you need to have over there is regarding the meaning. Then there are examples given in your book regarding all the 5 types of threats for CA in practice and all the 5 types of the threats for CA in service. Right, so as such, if you see regarding this independence, 5 types of threats, you have these like 15 points to be studied. One, what is the meaning of each of the type of threat? Then what are the examples of each type of threat for CA in practice? 5 more points. Then what are the examples of each type of threat for CA in service? Right, so likewise you have these 15 points for discussion over there. Right, so this is part 1, wherein we are talking about the meaning. Right, we have the familiarity threat, self-interest, self-review, advocacy, and the intimidation threat. Right, so if you see where they talk about the familiarity, where you're too sympathetic. Right, then self-interest, wherein you have the financial interest, right, where you are having the financial or the other interest. Right, then self-review, where you are not appropriately evaluating the results of a previous judgment made. So where maker-checker is getting violated. Right, then advocacy, wherein you're promoting a client to such an extent, it feels like your objectivity is getting compromised. And intimidation, where you're deterred, stopped from acting objectively because of the perceived pressures or the undue influence over the CA. Right, so that's the first part over there regarding the meaning. Then after the meaning, we have the examples of the threats for CA in service. So the following are examples of facts and circumstances within each of those categories of threats that might create threats for a professional accountant when undertaking a professional service. So when a CA in practice is providing a service, these are the threats. So these are examples of threats for CA in practice. Right, so you have again the FSSAI, and then B. Following are examples of facts and circumstances within each of these categories that might create a threat for a professional accountant when undertaking a professional activity. Right, so this is for your employer. Right, so this is for CA in service. And this is for the CA in service, right? You have the 5 example, the 5 types of threats and example for each one of them. Right, so like if you see over here, familiarity threat, right, for CA in practice, it says a close or immediate family member is a director or officer of the client. Right, so now I am an auditor and my father is working as a director at the client place. Right, so that's a close or immediate family member, right, or a director or officer or employee is in a position to exert significant influence over the subject matter. Right, recently been served as an engagement partner, or audit team having a long association. So that is why the rotation of company auditor has come into picture, because it was leading to the familiarity threat. Right, then after that you have the self-interest threat, wherein you have financial interest, then quoting low fees to get the assignment, then you have a business relationship, or you can do the insider trading and access to confidential information for personal gain. Right, then self-review, wherein maker-checker is getting violated. You're issuing a report on the effectiveness of control after checking the control, after implementing the control. So maker-checker getting violated. Having prepared the data and now you're checking the data, subject matter of the assurance engagement. So you only prepared financial statements and now you are only doing the audit of those financial statements. Right, then you have the advocacy. You're promoting the interest, shares of a client. You're handling litigations on behalf of the client. You're lobbying in favor of a legislation on behalf of the client. Right, so promoting, acting as an advocate, lobbying, that is advocacy. And then you have the intimidation threat. The client is threatening you with the dismissal, and a client is threatening you saying that they have more expertise on the matter in question, or they are telling you that the accountant is planned promotion will not happen, or acceptance of a significant gift from the client, right, which again leads to and they are threatening you that they will tell everybody that you accepted this gift. right? So these are just the examples of the FSSAI for CA in practice. And then on similar lines, you have the FSSAI for the CA in service, the examples given over there, right? You know, familiarity threat, you being responsible for financial reporting, and now again, immediate or close family member employed by the organization, making decisions that affect financial reporting. So you are doing financial reporting, an immediate family member can influence the decision regarding financial reporting. Again, long association. So again, familiarity threat. And then self-interest. Again, financial interest, access to corporate assets, gift or special treatment, right? Incentive compensation arrangement. Right? So that's the self-interest. Self-review, you have determined the accounting treatment for a business combination after doing the feasibility study. So you only did the feasibility study, you are only deciding the accounting treatment. So again, maker, checker type getting violated over here. Advocacy, you're manipulating the information in the prospectus to get the financing. So looking into the advocacy threat over there, right, for a CA in service, right? So if he manipulates the information which is to be going in the prospectus in order to get the favorable financing, right? So that could lead to advocacy threat for the CA in service, right? And then we have the intimidation threat, wherein, you know, an immediate close family member is facing the threat of dismissal, that you will be removed from office, you know, for a matter, disagreement regarding application of the accounting policy or the way in which the financial information is to be reported. Right? So again, putting some sort of a threat on the accounting or financial reporting matters. Individual attempting to influence the decision-making process of the professional accountant, for example, with regard to whom the contracts is to be given or the application of accounting principle. Right? So I hope all of you have got this particular outline, you know, that regarding the threats, we need to know the meaning of each of the type of threat, and then we also need to know the examples of the threats for CAs in practice and the examples of the threats for the CA in service. Then once that the threat has been identified, next what you need to do is you need to evaluate that whatever threat, if there is no threat, wonderful, matter is over. But if a threat has been identified, now you need to evaluate that whether the threat is at an acceptable level. Like you can, I can give you an example wherein, you know, there is a person partner cannot hold a single equity share of an audit client or so. But in case if your relative is holding, then relative can hold the shares of up to the face value of rupees 1 lakh. So say the relative is holding shares of 70,000. So then you say, oh, though there is a threat to the independence, but it is at an acceptable level. And who should think it is at an acceptable level? You, but also an RITP, a reasonable informed third party, should also be able to reach the same conclusion. Right? So you need to check that whether that threat which has been identified to the independence of the professional accountant, whether in practice or in service, whether it is at an acceptable level, right? So that is what you need to evaluate. And evaluate how? That whether the RITP, the reasonable and informed third party, would likely conclude that the accountant complies with the fundamental principle. Okay, had it not been you, it would have been somebody else. They would have reached the same conclusion which would have been reached. And I am saying that they are true and fair. Had anybody else also checked these financial statements, even they would have said true and fair only. Right? So that is where we talk about the evaluation of the threat. And then you evaluate, okay, oh my God, it is not at an acceptable level. So now steps are required to take in. One, either to eliminate that threat. That is, you know, if your relative is holding, if you are holding a share of 1,000, you have to eliminate. You cannot reduce it to an acceptably low level. But if relative is holding shares of 2 lakh, you need to request your relative that please 1 lakh share you sell and 1 lakh you keep. You know why? Because then you are able to reduce it to an acceptable level. So if the threat is not at an acceptable level, now steps have to be taken addressing the threat. That is, either you reduce it to an acceptable level or you eliminate the threat. Right? So either eliminate or you try to reduce it. Right? Reduce how? By applying the applicable safeguards. Right? So to reduce the threat, it says you need to apply the safeguards. And now here we have the examples of what type of safeguards can be put. And you say no, we are not able to eliminate, we are not able to reduce. Then what does it say? Bye bye. अच्छा चलता हूँ, दुआओं में याद रखना. Declining or ending the professional activity. So that means you say no, we cannot proceed further. Right? So identify the threat, evaluate whether it is at an acceptable level. If not at an acceptable level, you try to eliminate or reduce. You're not able to eliminate, you're not able to reduce by putting the applicable safeguards, you need to withdraw from the engagement. Okay, right. Now what are these safeguards, right? So always putting more people on the assignment, having more involvement, more firms, more people, more qualified personnel, separate team. It says that can help you to put the applicable safeguards to reduce the threat to the independence, right? So it says more time, more qualified personnel, more. Having an appropriate reviewer who is not a member of the team, review the work, like what concept we have of EQCR, engagement quality control review. And the work of one CA being reviewed by another CA before the report is issued, an objective evaluation of the significant judgments made. Or having different partners, engagement team for separate reporting lines. For the same client, you are doing some consultancy work also, some reporting work also. So you have separate teams, separate partners for those consulting and the reporting work. Then involving another firm to perform or re-perform a part of the engagement. Right? So like doing a joint audit or so for some part of it, or separating the teams which when dealing with the matters of the confidential nature. Right? So separating the teams, having different engagement team, involving another firm, having an appropriate reviewer, and putting the additional time and the qualified personnel. Right? So this is again a question which has already been asked in your exams. Right? This is again a question which has already been asked in your exams. Okay. Right? So successfully have we completed our discussion regarding the ERII. Right? So if I come to the entire list which we had prepared. Have we completed the discussion regarding the overview? Yes. Have we completed the entire discussion regarding the fundamental principle, that is your I, O, P, C, D, C, C and the PB, and then after that the discussion regarding the independence. Okay. Right, now coming to the next discussion over there, which is regarding the no cloud. Right, we'll complete with the preliminary, then come to the schedules, and then come to the council guidelines. Right, so now coming to the next topic over there, which is a trending topic, which is regarding the no CLAR. Right, so no CLAR, what do you mean by no CLAR? First, what is the full form of no CLAR? It says no CLAR is the non-compliance with the laws and regulation. Right, no CLAR, so non-compliance with the laws and regulations. Okay, so now what is no CLAR doing in ethics? Okay, what is this non-compliance with law regulation doing in ethics? One, we have an essay 250, which is regarding the consideration of, essay 250, which is regarding the consideration of the laws and regulations in an audit of the financial statements. And now here we are having a discussion in ethics regarding the no CLAR. Right, so we know as a chartered accountant, he could be a chartered accountant in practice, or he could be a chartered accountant in service, that is, he is an employee. And being in practice, while doing the audit of an entity, he comes to know, oh my God, this entity which I am auditing, so much of non-compliance with the laws and regulation. Right, so should the CA turn a blind eye and say, no, I have not seen anything, no, I don't know anything? No. He has to bring it to the attention of the relevant authorities. Right, or you are a CA in service. You're working as an employee in an organization. You know your employer dhad is not complying with the laws. Will you keep a blind eye to it, or you say, no, I don't know anything? No, it is your ethical responsibilities that any such instances of non-compliance which come to your attention, you take the appropriate action for the same. And because you are a chartered accountant, you are not somebody who runs away from situations. Right? So that's why it's been put in the code of ethics. Right. So do all CAs in practice and all CAs in service need to comply with NOCLAR? No. Right now, to begin with, there is a limited applicability of NOCLAR. So those CAs in practice who are doing the audits of the listed entities having net worth of 250 crore or more, having the net worth of the 250 crore or more. Right, those company, auditors who are doing audit of listed entities having net worth of 250 crore or more, and those CAs in service who are the employees of the listed entities. Right, so not employees of all entities, employees of the listed entities. Right now, these are the CAs in practice and CAs in service who need to comply with the requirement of the NOCLAR. Auditors of listed entities having net worth of 250 crore or more, or the employees of the listed entity. In the employees also, they specifically talk about the SPA, the senior professional accountants, like the managers and officers and company secretaries, CEO, CFO, the senior professional accountants in service, right? The senior professional accountant in service. Okay, right. Now, what all discussion do we have regarding the NOCLAR? So one discussion we have regarding NOCLAR is the applicability of the NOCLAR. Then after the applicability of the NOCLAR, the next discussion that we have over there is regarding the meaning of NOCLAR. What is NOCLAR? Non-compliance with law regulation. It could be intentional, it could be unintentional, it could be by omission or it could be by commission, but it is contrary to the prevailing laws and regulation. And either by the client or by the employing organization. Client for CA in practice and employing organization for CA in service. Right. Then after that we have the examples of NOCLAR. Okay, what could be the examples of the NOCLAR? And then we have the facts about NOCLAR. So now when I'm a CA in practice doing audit of listed entity, or I'm an employee of a listed entity, I might keep on going, breaking my head everywhere. I want to find non-compliance. I want to find. No. In the normal course of your service, do you need to have expert knowledge of law? No, not required to have the expert knowledge of law. Right, so in the course of providing your services, if you come to know any non-compliance, you need to take the appropriate action. Right, then what is the objective of NOCLAR? It says turning a blind eye is not the behavior expected of a chartered accountant when he knows something wrong is happening right in front of his eyes. He cannot turn a blind eye. Okay, and it's not only non-compliance with FEMA or Income Tax Act or GST or Factory Act, वो तो है ही. But he comes to know chartered accountant in practice or service that in the factory canteen there is some adulteration happening in the food which is affecting the liver of the employees, which is affecting the health of the employees. Now this is something which could cause substantial harm leading to serious consequences in financial, non-financial terms, which could lead to, Factories Act, Companies Act, वो तो non-compliance है ही. But there is any such, gas leakage happening which is affecting the lungs of the employees, or, which is leading to some, spoiling the relationship of one country with other. And also which is causing substantial harm, leading to serious consequences. Right? In financial, non-financial terms, even those matters are covered in the NOCLAR. Right? So it's not only our the list of laws and regulation, it goes way beyond that. Right? It goes way beyond that. Then, as a CA, if you come to know about a NOCLAR, what action do you take? So, how do you respond to a NOCLAR or a potential NOCLAR? Right? Then, what is confidentiality? You say, ma'am, you just told us we are not supposed to disclose the secrets of the client, and you're telling us that non-compliance you tell. Yes, because it is required by law. The Code of Ethics have told you to do so. And then what documentation should be kept by the CA in practice, CA in service regarding the NOCLAR? Right, so this is our outline for discussion regarding the NOCLAR. Right, so let us first look into the applicability. Oh yeah, one more important question which came in the recent exams, right? One of the past exams is regarding the difference between NOCLAR and SA 250. And also NOCLAR versus the SA 250. Okay, right. So any topic that we have to study now, uska pehle, first you have to do this type of bifurcation and then tick one point over there. Already I've told you that NOCLAR is a trending topic for your exams. Okay, right. So if you look at the question bank, you will get to see questions like, regarding NOCLAR versus SA 250 and also how do you respond to the NOCLAR, responding to NOCLAR. Right. So whatever we are studying, what is your point of concern, that whatever is covered in the class today, uske related, from whichever material, whatever content is there with you, you are going to go through the question answers related to the same. Right. So because of limited time, I'm not going through the entire content, but you have to go through the entire content of the question answer, make your notes, revise and so. Okay, right. So now talking about the first point, applicability. Right. So one, what did we say? SPA, Senior Professional Accountants being the employees of the listed entity. Right. What is included in Senior Professional Accountant? It says directors, officers, senior employees, including the CEO, CFOs of these companies. Right. Then after that, it says for the CAs in practice, it says those CAs in practice who are doing audits of listed entities which are listed on a stock exchange having a net worth of 250 crore or more. Right, so that's question number one, the applicability of the NOCLAR. Then we have the discussion regarding the meaning of NOCLAR. Right, so what is the meaning? It's a non-compliance with law regulation, which could be either intentional, unintentional, full non-compliance or partial non-compliance with the law. Right, which it says which is contrary to the prevailing laws and regulation. Right, for a CA in practice, it could be done by the client. For a CA in practice, and for a CA in service, it could be done by the employing organization. Right, and personal misconduct of employees, rash driving by the director, is not covered in the NOCLAR we are discussing over here. Next one, important question, the examples of NOCLAR. Right, so where could you say that there is a non-compliance with the law regulation? So let's try to develop a interlinking of the points over there. Right, so one, there you say that this organization, CA in practice, CA in service, comes to know that there is a fraud, there is some corruption, there is some bribery. So obviously if there is corruption, bribery, that would lead to money laundering. It could lead to terrorist funding. It could lead to the dealing with the proceeds of crime. Obviously if there is the money laundering, that means you are doing some fraud in the securities market and trading. If you want to do some fraud in securities market and trading, you have to do the fraud through the bank. So banking and other financial products and services. If you are doing the fraud in the bank, obviously you are also going to do the fraud in the tax and pension liabilities and payment. If you are doing the fraud in the tax liability, you'll also do the fraud with the public health and safety. You'll also do the fraud with the environment, and you'll also do the fraud with the data. And so that is how interlinking you can remember the points regarding the examples of the NOCLAR. Right, so now do you need to do some extra work when you have to do the reporting on NOCLAR? It says no. During the course of providing a service, expertise of law not required. Then what does it say? Personal misconduct not covered. And in exceptional circumstances, it says you may decide to communicate the matter to the appropriate authority. And so disclosure would be precluded. So if law regulation allows, yes. If no, then you don't disclose it to the authority. Right, so that's the facts about the NOCLAR. Right, then what are the objectives of NOCLAR? I told you turning a blind eye is not an appropriate response from a professional accountant. Right, so that's not, it says it doesn't look good. That CA, you're running away from situation. Right, so turning a blind eye is not an appropriate response of a CA. And that is why, what does it say? That CA, if you come to know about a non-compliance, you have to respond to the non-compliance. So now what is the response to the non-compliance? One, by CA in service, CA in practice. Right, we talk about the responsibilities of SPA other than SPA and the responsibilities of the CA in practice. Right, so what are the steps to be taken for responding? So again, this is something you need to learn it by heart. Right, so when you come across an instance of the non-compliance, number one, you have to understand the matter. Okay, exactly हुआ क्या है? Then once you understand कि labor law comply नहीं हुआ है, FEMA law comply नहीं हुआ है, food law comply नहीं हुआ है, now you need to address the matter, right? So now you need to not run away but address the matter. Then you say, I am not that expert in law, so I'm not getting it very concretely. So then you can decide to seek the advice. Based on the advice, you can take lawyer's advice, solicitor. Then based on the advice, you can further decide whether any further action is required to be taken or no. Based on the further action, now you can also determine that whether you need to report it to SEBI or FEMA or RBI or so whether you need to report to appropriate authority. And then finally, sometimes you come to know about a non-compliance which has already happened, or you may come to know about a non-compliance which is about to happen. So what do you mean by the word imminent? Something which is about to happen. कैसा होने वाला है कि ये कंपनी टेररिस्ट फंडिंग करने वाली है, right? So which is about to happen. So again, those you need to take the appropriate action, and whatever actions you have taken in the context of NOCLAR, you need to have the proper documentation for the same. Right, so understand the matter, don't run away, address the matter, check if you need any advice. Then based on the advice, what is your further action? Do you need to communicate to the appropriate authority? Imminent breach and the documentation, right? The imminent breach and the documentation. Right, so that is responding to NOCLAR. Right, appropriate authority, it depends upon the nature of the matter. Like I told you, if it's a listed company on the stock exchange, the appropriate authority would be SEBI. Listed company, stock exchange, but it's a banking company, then it could be SEBI as well as RBI. Okay, will you say that you've not complied with the requirement of confidentiality? No, because it comes under the exception. Right, and then what are the documentation requirement? So, itna bada, like, you've been like a Hrithik Roshan, you've been like a, what do you say, a superhero over there, disclosing this, bringing it into the notice of the world, the non-compliance with the law regulation. So, what documentation should be there in your file? Okay, you communicated the non-compliance to the management. What was the response of the management? Right? Then what was the course of action the accountant considered? Right? Judgments made and decisions having regard to the RITP test. And this is the most beautiful sentence in the entire discussion of NOCLAR. How the accountant is satisfied that the responsibility of public interest has been fulfilled. कि मैंने अपना धर्म निभाया, मैंने अपना कर्तव्य पूरा किया. How the accountant is satisfied that the responsibility of public interest has been fulfilled. Right, so how the TCWG responded to the matter, the course of action the accountant considered, and how he is satisfied that the public interest responsibility has been fulfilled. In the documentation, in addition to the above, they should also keep the understanding of the matter, the discussion of the matter, and the identified or the suspected non-compliance. Right, all of this is required to be included in the documentation. And then one last point over there, which is NOCLAR versus SA 250. Again, you can mark it as trending. Anyways, the entire NOCLAR itself is trending. Right, so what is the difference between NOCLAR and 250? Right, so SA 250 is applicable only for audit, whereas NOCLAR is applicable for CA in practice as well as CA in service. Right, so 250 only for audit, whereas NOCLAR is applicable for CA in practice as well as CA in service. SA 250 only talks about those laws and regulations which have a direct effect and other laws and regulations which may have a material effect in case of non-compliance. NOCLAR is same. What is covered in 250 is also covered in NOCLAR. What is covered in SA 250, even that is covered in the NOCLAR. But NOCLAR goes one step beyond. It says, NOCLAR, while being alike to SA 250 till this point, is further ahead that it takes into account non-compliance that causes the substantial harm, resulting in the serious consequences in the financial, non-financial terms. like I told you, adulteration happening in the factory or the chemical leakage leading to the affecting the lungs of the employee, right? So substantial harm leading to serious consequences in financial, non-financial term, that additionally also gets covered in the NOCLAR in addition to SA 250. Okay, then 250 does not define stakeholders, whereas in NOCLAR stakeholders have been defined as investor, creditors, employees, and also the general public. And also the global citizens, the citizens of the country, even that is covered in the NOCLAR. And in SA 250, it says you communicate the non-compliance to management, to TCWG, to shareholder, to regulator. So first you communicate to management and then you communicate to the regulator. In SA 250 that is said. But in NOCLAR it is said, okay, you think, okay, if I first communicated to management and then I tell appropriate authority, then management might cover up the matter. Normally you should first communicate to management and then to the appropriate authority. But you think, मुझे एक non-compliance पता चला है, अगर ये management को बता दिया कि मैं authority को बताने वाला हूँ, कि they might cover it up. So in exceptional circumstances, it says you might directly communicate to the appropriate authority, and this provision does not exist in SA 250. And so in exceptional circumstances, the professional accountant may directly communicate to the appropriate authority. Right, so these are the points of difference between NOCLAR and SA 250. Right, to whom it is applicable, then what is the scope of 250 and NOCLAR, then the definition of stakeholders, and then the exceptional circumstances. Right, so first you have to remember the points under which you're going to distinguish and then the distinguish between. So one distinguish is going to be regarding the applicability, second is going to be scope, third is going to be the stakeholders, and fourth is going to be the reporting. In NOCLAR and exceptional circumstances, you can directly report to the appropriate authority. However, this provision does not exist in the SA 250. Right, so that completes a very important discussion regarding the NOCLAR, and these are the questions over there. So that now we can move on to the next topic, which is regarding the membership of the institute. Okay.